Like most of you, I'll never forget the day, the initial confusion and the growing realization that something evil was taking place. The fear, the dawning awareness that every day from that day forward would be unalterably different, that we had been carried unwillingly across some awful threshold. Evil had crashed the gates of our ordinary lives. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your daily devotional for Monday, September 11th, 2023. It was morning, and we were going about our morning routines. As we were getting ready for the day, we had the Today Show on in the background. I have a vague memory that the announcers began reporting on an apparent explosion at the World Trade Center in New York City. Curious, I sat down on the bed and began watching the TV broadcast. It was surreal, watching smoke pour from the top of one of the World Trade Center towers on a perfectly beautiful day. At first, no one knew quite what had happened. Video of the first plane slamming into the tower didn't surface for a day or two. But when the second plane slammed into the South Tower, we knew deep down, even if we couldn't name it then, that the world would be different. As facts began to surface and it became clear that this was a coordinated attack by a group of radical Islamic fundamentalists, fear turned to anger, and for many, that anger turned to hate. That's what happened 22 years ago today. In the name of God, a group of radicalized Islamists inflicted the worst kind of evil that human beings can unleash on one another. I've been talking in the last week or two about building our theological vocabulary, and it dawns on me that we have a word that can be used in a theological sense to help us understand a little bit better what happened on that day. The word is inhumanity. It literally means extreme cruelty, and it is not necessarily a theological term per se, but in this context, it describes what we saw on that day. Inhumanity in the name of God. Where does it come from? Why do people inflict inhumanity in the name of God? And by the way, Islamic fundamentalists are not alone in inflicting this kind of inhumanity in the name of God. We Christians have our own skeletons in the closet in this regard too. Even a cursory scan of church history reveals torture and execution of heretics in the name of God. Burning at the stake is only one form that this has taken in our history. My point is not to excuse either the people who committed this heinous act or those who funded it, let alone to regard us as equal. It is to say that there is a darkness in the human soul that under the right, or should I say, under the wrong circumstances, can come to the surface. Look, I'm a Reformed Christian, a Calvinist, which means that I have a pretty unflinching understanding of the breadth and depth of human sin. It's not confined only to so-called evil people. Even good people can be caught up in unspeakable evil under certain circumstances. And one of those circumstances, I am convinced, is when religion becomes a tool in the hands of those who lust for power. Naming another group as the enemy and then working to cast them as less than human paves the way for inhumanity to run rampant through the streets. Don't believe me? Hitler managed to convince millions of otherwise good and faithful people to blame Jews and others for their problems, and then hate them, and then depict them as subhuman. The inevitable result was some of the worst in history acts of inhumanity in the name of God. 22 years after 9/11, it is important to continue to remember the horrors that were inflicted on us that day and upon the innocents in the Twin Towers, in the Pentagon, and on United Flight 93. Inhumanity in the name of God. My prayer each year is that we never succumb to that same level of inhumanity in the name of God. It can happen. May the memories of those we lost be our constant reminder of humanity's ability to inflict inhumanity on others. And now may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do, this day and in all the days ahead.